We'll get started. Now, so far, we have been seeing different kind of modules as part of the DevOps curriculum, right? So we saw from build management, and then we saw from repository management, we saw configuration management, and then we saw continuous integration, continuous delivery, and creating containers. So in that way, now, as you keep getting in deeper and deeper into the DevOps side, one of the major requirement that you have is how do you create a machine, or how is that you will help the organization in taking care of the infrastructure requirements. So that is how, no matter what you do, you're still going to have a physical machine in your premises, and we are going to take care. And that way, now, regardless of whether you're going to work as an admin or not, but as soon as you enter into the DevOps culture, you have to be ready to solve different kind of things. So that's when pretty much I personally believe that anyone who is working on the DevOps at least should be aware of what is the cloud and how exactly things works. So depending on, again, your interest and how deep that you want to get into a subject, if needed, you can also work as an administrator. But if not, as a regular or as a generic DevOps engineering, you should be aware of the concept of the cloud system. Okay, so that way, in the last module, that whatever that we are going to work, we'll try to understand on what exactly is the cloud, and in that specifically, we'll try to understand the certain essentials of AWS, and we'll just try to get hands-on in it. But again, we are not going to get into deeper and deeper as an administrator, because that's when in the DevOps you have a separate role equivalent to a DevOps AWS administrator or an architect. So that is when you need to get very deep, and you will be working only on that. But other than that, if you want to do any automation, and in that if you need a machine, you should be comfortable to create in the cloud or in the AWS. So that's the level that pretty much for the next couple of sessions, we'll try to understand the essentials of whatever is needed for us to automate a process in AWS. Okay, so before we just try to get in deeper into this, let's try to understand first what exactly do you mean by your infrastructure. So in an organization, if you say that you need an infrastructure, or if you say that they need a data center, what and all do they need? So for any kind of work that we are going to do, the first thing that we need for that is an application, right? So basically you're doing a development, or you're doing a testing, or you're building some project, or doing some management, anything that you're doing, you need an application or a software. With respect to that, you'll be doing certain activity. Now, when you're creating some task and doing some work, and for that you are using an application, there might be some data again that you have to store and retrieve, and based on that you have to work. So that's when an application will be talking to a database, and it will be trying to help you to store the data and get back the data whenever you need using this application. Now, when you have an application and a database, where exactly are you going to keep this? So that is when, for running this, we need an operating system specific to what is our use case. So you might be having a Windows machine or a Linux machine or pretty much Mac, based on what is our requirement. Now we'll be having an operating system, and on top of that, we'll be having these applications running, which a user will be accessing. And now, when you say an operating system, to have an operating system, you need particular hardware, and only on top of that, you're going to install these OS, and on top of that, the application which a user will be working. So that is when you say a data center, it is nothing but a collection of all these things together, where it varies depending on different kind of configurations of the OS, the hardware, and the application we are going to work. So that is when we say that in an organization, we are going to set up a data center or an infrastructure, it's not just about only the machine or the application, but it is a combination of all these things together, only which we call it as a data center, which an organization will be using to serve different needs for a user internally or an external customer. So that way, now if an organization has to set up a data center. So when I say data center, it is nothing but a lab or a place in a company where they are going to keep all the servers and maintain. So that is what we call it as data center, where all the data about your organization is stored and maintained in terms of the machines. So as of now, what currently an organization does, they will be having a separate floor or separate building in which they will be keeping all the servers and maintaining it. So that way, now we will be having an infrastructure which is being maintained on premises. On premise means it is on the same location of the company where we are going to work. We will be having one more building or one more floor in which we are going to keep all the servers and maintain. So that is what we call it as on premise. So within the company, you will be maintaining the infrastructure. So now, let's say when an organization is trying to create a project, they might expect that there is a certain number of people who are going to work on it. Then based on that, now what will they'll do is they'll have to procure whatever machines or the operating system that they have to set up and configure, so that whatever the use case that they have and how many number of people that they are expecting to work, based on that they'll be working. Now let's assume that when the project is first created, we might have a requirement where around 1,000 users are going to work. Now, as the business keeps growing, the next year, let's say for the same product, we might have to increase the number to 2,000 users. And based on that, what will happen? The infrastructure will also grow, or the data center will also grow. So now we have to add more and more machines or procure more machines and configure and give the users so that they'll be working on it. Now, same way, now on the next year, let's assume that they are expecting the growth and they have procured everything for 5,000 users. Let's say this. Then what will happen? People will be working. But suddenly the problem happens is, as you keep growing more and more, you need more and more space and you have to think about procuring and managing everything. And at the same time, if suddenly the usage dips or if the usage comes down, then unnecessarily we are going to procure everything and you're going to still do the maintenance of these machines where even though we have bought, we'll be keeping it idle. So that's when there'll be a lot of problems in how you're going to maintain on the premises, and also are we going to effectively use it or not is the biggest problem what the organizations will be facing. Okay, so what is that we can do? And again, when I say it is just only from the requirement where what is the difficulty that we are facing. But if you take the complete infrastructure or the complete data center, they have to manage it fully. So what and all are the things we are going to do for that? So if you look for a business requirement wherein if there is a company or an organization for which you are going to create a data center, the first thing that we need to make sure is there is a high availability of whatever machines or the services that we have inside the data center. So high availability means at any point of time, if a user wants to connect to a machine or run his application on a particular machine, he should be able to run without any problem. So that is how these machines as well as the services or the applications which are running in the machine should always be available for the user. Because if a user is trying to connect and that point of time, if there is a problem and he's not able to do the task, then pretty much it will be of no use or it will be a productivity loss for the organization. So that's when they have to make sure first the data center and the machines and the applications in them has to be highly available. Next, as a business for a company, they would require something called as fault tolerant. What do you mean by fault tolerant? So when you say fault tolerant, it is all about now when you have a problem, what will you do? So it is not like that you will never have a problem. So there are things which might go wrong, but when it is going wrong, do we have any alternative system to which we can work, right? So that is what the fault tolerant is going to be working. Now, let's say you are connecting to a machine and suddenly the machine has some problem. Now, when you are thinking about setting a data center, it should be in such a way that if that machine is down, you should think about having one more machine as a backup in which the same application can be run and the user can be asked to use that. So that way the users will not be idle, or they will not be using a machine wherein it's having a problem, or they will not be losing any kind of data. So that way fault tolerant is all about, if there is a problem, what is the backup that you can provide for that, so that the services which is being used by the user or the end user will be accessed uninterruptedly. So that kind of facility is what a business requires, wherein everything should be acting as a backup. So that's what we refer by fault tolerant. Then elasticity. So what do you mean by elasticity? So generally when you say elasticity, you can expand, right? When you have a rubber, what is the characteristics of a rubber? It has a elasticity in nature, which means if you try to pull it, you can easily stretch it. How is it compared to the infrastructure? Now, in the previous slide, I was saying that suddenly, if there is a requirement where you were expecting that the usage is going to be 3,000 users, but suddenly it became 5,000 users. Now, in order to get everything done, you will have to spend a lot of time in procuring everything and then configuring and then investing your time and the maintenance in it. Whereas it is going to take a lot of effort. But let's think about some kind of service where you're trying to access web applications, or the websites like Amazon, or you're trying to access Flipkart. What will happen if there is some sudden load? Now, they won't just say that, hey, I think because of $1 billion sale that I've put, they were expecting 10,000 people to join, but suddenly there are 30,000 people who are joining that site, and they are trying to do some, online shopping. What will happen? The load on the machine will go down. Now, they cannot just say that, okay, now I see that instead of expected 10,000 people to join, I see 30,000 people have joined. So let me, stop the site for one day. I will add new machines and get it back. Pretty much it's not going to happen. So whenever the business requirement is there, we should be able to add more resources to our data center so that the load or the work can be done by the end users or the users who's trying to access without much of the effort in the maintenance and the cost. So that is what we call it as elasticity, wherein easily you can stretch and increase the size of your data center by adding more resources. The same thing, scalability means it's not just about only increasing. Now, suddenly, when you're going to not use them, then what will happen? Now, let's talk about the same business where they were expecting 10,000 people, but suddenly 30,000 people used it. So now they have procured more and more machine, and let's say in some method, they created all the configuration, added more resources to the data center and allowing those 30,000 people. But the next day, when the sale is over, the usage will come down. Now, whatever that they have purchased and they have trying to maintain will be of waste. So that is how it should be easy enough where if we want, we can add more resources to the data center. And if I don't want, you should be just giving it away, where you should not be taking care of the cost or the maintenance effort in it. So that is what a business requirement will be there from an organization. Now, if you want to do all those things, pretty much, if you are going to take care of the data center, just like how we have a development group and a separate testing group and a release management group or project management, in the same way, to maintain the data center or the infrastructure, we also need to have a separate team or a group who is going to work, right? So in that, we need a specific dedicated space for storing all the machines. So when I say you want to have a lab, you need to have a specific space allocated in which you will be keeping all the machine, and you will also need specific AC, more and more into it, because there's a lot of servers and then there will be a lot of heat produced. So you need to keep it as a separate dedicated space. And you should also think about adding more and more space to it, because suddenly if the usage grows, then you should be thinking about expanding your location or the floor on which you're keeping all the machines. So that's when you need to think about having a dedicated space only for the service. And high bandwidth. Now, when you're working in an organization, sometimes they will be based on headquarters. Let's say that they have a headquarters in US, someplace in Sunnyvale, or pretty much in Boston. And now, if we are working somewhere in a different region, like in India, and you want to access, then if you try to access a machine from India to a machine which is available in the data center on US, then it is going to take a lot of time to process the requirement. So that way, the bandwidth, whatever that we are going to have in the data center, has to be quite higher. So that is when, from a longer distance, when people are trying to access, it should be easy for them to access and it should not delay the process. If not, what will happen for those who are trying to try to access from India, pretty much they will be getting all the output very late and the tasks also is going to take delayed. So that's how we have to think about having higher bandwidth in the network connection. And power supply is one of the important thing. Now, if you have a dedicated space only for this machine, and for that you need power, and again for the AC you need power, every time it has to be running. So there'll be a huge cost involved in maintaining this also. And support availability. When I say you have a dedicated infrastructure and everyone are working, now if something goes wrong, we need people to work on it 24/7. So that is how there will be a specific support team which is working on at least 2 to 3 shifts, where any point of time there's a problem, there will be someone who will be able to help us in getting the things fixed. So that's when on our premises, we need to think about having a separate support team and ensure they are already or always available whenever it is needed. Okay. And as I said, capacity planning is whenever you want to add more and more resources, you should have enough space in the location where you have decided to set it up. If not, again, you have to move from one location to another location. Then again, it will be a headache, stopping the services and a lot of effort involved in it. And by doing all those things, it is going to take a lot of maintenance effort when compared to what we are achieving. The effort is going to be quite high. And to set up and maintain everything, it'll again take a lot of time, or the process is going to be a time consuming process. And in the same perspective, as I said, you will have a different business group. They should also have a business group wherein we have a specific leadership based on which you're going to maintain all those things. So you need to assign a separate management team or a leader who is going to take care of the infrastructure requirement and help you to run the business. So that's when you're going to put in too much of cost, and the maintenance effort will be there, and also it's a time consuming process to maintain the infrastructure on our premises. Okay, so what is that we can do? So that is when the cloud service comes into the picture. So what exactly is a cloud service? So a cloud service is nothing but a service which is made available for the users through internet whenever they need. So that is how, if there is anything specifically on the computing requirement, computing means if you need a machine or you need to install something on a machine and access, that is what we call it as computing. So that way, if there is any computing requirement that a user wants, then he can go to the internet and access whatever service that he needs, which will be provided by a specific service provider or a vendor. So such a kind of service where on the internet you will be doing all your computing tasks, where whatever the machine that we need or the application inside the machine that we need, we will be accessing it over the internet rather than having the infrastructure or on our own premises. So instead of having it on our own premises, we will be having it on internet and we'll be accessing it. And who is going to provide it? We are not going to take care of it. It will be given by a specific service provider. Okay, so that way, whatever services that you want using the computing services, we are going to get things like different servers, storage in it, the database or the networking or specific software that whatever you want, or if you want to do any analytics or metrics work, you can easily do it using this cloud service, where cloud service is all about accessing a machine or some service over the internet whenever that you need, wherein these services will be provided by a specific vendor or a cloud service provider. Okay, so that is how you can think of cloud as nothing but accessing a service or a machine over the internet whenever it is needed, and that is being maintained by a service provider and not us. Okay, so that's what we call it as a cloud service. Okay, so how is that cloud service is going to be benefited for us, and what is that we can do? Okay, now when you're trying to access the cloud service, there are different models of the cloud service. Okay, so what are the different models that we have for the cloud service? Now we have majorly three kinds of cloud service. So they are called as IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, where IaaS stands for infrastructure as a service. PaaS stands for platform as a service, and SaaS stands for software as a service. So what is the difference, and why do we need this, and when do we need it? So particularly, now let's say when we are working as an administrator, I want to create a new machine when someone is asking. Then what is that we are going to do is we require a machine wherein instead of creating a machine or setting up a machine on our data center which is available in the company's premises, what we can do is we can go to the cloud and ask for a machine wherein the service what you are going to ask them is infrastructure as a service. In this, the vendor or the service provider will give us the basic machine whatever is needed. So that way they will be giving us a machine which will contain the networking, the storage, or whatever machine that we need, they will be giving it. And on top of that, we are going to install a particular operating system and specifically whatever application or the middleware that you want to install on top of this, and put the specific data using which we will be working on it. So that way, infrastructure as a service means we are going to get only the machine from the vendor, and on top of that, we are going to install the operating system or a specific application based on our need, and we'll be working on it. So basically, as an administrator, if you see, when he wants to do some task, he needs a machine wherein he will be using the infrastructure as a service, where he will be just getting only the machine, and on top of that, we will be doing the installation of the operating system, middleware, or the application. Okay, so this kind of model will be used majorly by the administrators. Then PaaS, platform as a service. Now, when you talk about developers, now when a developer wants to do his activity, he needs a machine, and he's not bothered about the machine or the operating system. The only thing that he wants is to do some activity. He needs a particular machine, and on that machine, he will try to install whatever the application he wants, and he will try to put some data and start working. So that is when in the platform as a service model, the vendor will be giving us all the requirements along with the machine. So he will be giving a machine in which the operating system will also be there, a specific middleware will also be there, as well as whatever the runtime libraries that you need will also be there. So the only thing the user will do is on top of this, he will be just installing some particular application as he need and use the data to store on this. So that way, this will be used generally by the developers, or these kind of services will be used by developers where they will be getting the complete machine and the operating system and the middleware by the vendor. On top of that, they're just going to install the application and put some data based on their need. Okay, so this is platform as a service. Whereas we also have one more called as software as a service. What do you mean by software as a service? Now, as a user, let's say I'm not interested about any machine or what anything that you're going to install. All I want is I just want to access some application wherein If you go with the software as a service, now the vendor will not only give the machine and install the operating system, but specifically whatever the application that you want will also be installed on the same machine, where you will just go ahead and access the service. For example, Gmail. If you think, in order to access Gmail, we are not actually having a machine separately installed, and on that we are not thinking about installing some software and accessing, right? It is a web application which is already running somewhere. So simply if I go and access, I'll be able to use it. In the same way, if there is a particular application which you want to use, rather than you creating a machine and installing everything on top of that and then accessing, you can think about using the SaaS service model, where you will be having everything, where when you get a machine from the vendor, you will be having all the operating system in it, as well as all the applications, whatever that you want to access, that will be pre-installed and you'll be using it directly. So that's how generally when an end user is going to use, then the service that they will be requiring is the software as a service. Okay. Now, to just make it a little more clear, let's try to compare it with buying a car. Okay, now how can you compare buying a car with the service model that you have? Suppose if we are going to buy a car and use it for our own purpose, then we will be owning the car, which means we will buy the car and we will keep it in our house or in our flat, and we will try to maintain. So that is when on your premises, that is on your home, you're going to keep the car. But whatever that it takes, everything will be maintained by us, wherein we'll have to do the financing for the car, and then as it goes to the depreciation over the years, we have to take responsibility out of it. And then if you want to do any kind of servicing or taking care of insurance or road tax, everything has to be done. And additionally, the fuel, whenever you want to drive, you have to put it up, and any tolls that you're getting on the road, you're going to pay for that. And if you're thinking about hiring a driver, once again, for that also we are going to pay, where everything is going to be taken care by the user itself. This is the default model on which we are going to be working in a data center, where everything will be available in our data center. As and when some requirement comes, we'll be adding more and more to the same premised machines. Now, when you talk about infrastructure as a service, think about leasing a car. So when you lease a car, what and all you will get? The car will be provided by the who? The service provider or the vendor. And where, what is that we are going to do? He's just going to give only the car, and whatever the finance it is needed for buying the car, he will take care, and he will just take the car from them. Whereas from that, we are going to take care about all the other things like servicing, taking care of the insurance, the fuel of it, whatever tolls that we are getting, everything we will have to pay. And also if we need a driver, we have to pay for that. So that is when infrastructure as a service, you are just taking only the machine. Similarly, you are going to take only the car, and the rest of the things will be taken care by us, and the car will be given only by the vendor. The same thing if you go to platform as a service, you can think about hiring a car. So when you say hiring a car, you will be hiring it for 1 week or 2 weeks, where now in addition, by giving the car, he will also take care of the servicing, the insurance, the road tax, or any fixed age maintenance that you have to do. Everything will be done by the service provider or the vendor. So only thing what we are going to do is, other than paying for it, we are going to take care of the fuel charges by filling it, and any road tolls that you go through that you have to pay, or also for the driver you will be paying. So that is how you can think about the platform as a service for hiring a car. And the same thing, if you want to compare software as a service, then you can think about taking a taxi for a short distance whenever you need. So that's how, let's say if I want to travel from one place to other place, I'll just take a taxi, where everything is given by the vendor or the service provider, where we don't have to worry about anything. So same thing in the car, not only the car. So whoever we are going to use it for the taxi, that guy has to take care of buying the car, finance, and whatever problems that happens in servicing in it, the insurance, the road tax, the fuel for it. Okay, everything will be taken care by that vendor or the taxi owner from which we are trying to take everything. So we are just going to pay only for the time we are traveling. So that's how you can compare the software as a service in terms of taking a taxi, wherein everything will be given by the service provider. So all we have to do is just go and access the services. Getting it? On what exactly do we mean by the three different types of service model? That is IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Others? Is that clear? Any questions on this so far?
No, Adam, everything is clear.
Okay. Okay. So now coming to the actual point. So when you say cloud, there are a lot of service providers in the cloud, as we know. And one among them and the popular ones are AWS or Amazon Web Services. So AWS or Amazon Web Services is a subsidiary of Amazon.com. So primarily whatever the site that we are using for purchasing or online shopping, Amazon.com. So they are the ones who have created this Amazon Web Services, and from them is what we will be using this cloud. So Amazon.com is the cloud service provider, where whatever the service that we are giving is what we call it as Amazon Web Services. Okay, wherein it is a on-demand computing environment which is available on the internet. So basically now if you try to think about having the service over the internet, the advantages is cost effectiveness, where we are not going to keep everything in our premises. So it will be available in the data center of Amazon, where we are going to access it using internet. Again, we don't have to worry about where they are keeping and how they are maintaining. And if we need a machine, we are just going to go to the AWS and say that, hey, over the internet, I need a machine, and they'll be giving you a machine. And if you don't want, you're just going to not use it. So that way, you're going to pay only for what you're using and when you need it. And then elasticity and agility will be quite easy, because whenever you want to scale up your business, immediately you can do it, wherein rather than setting up everything on the premises, it'll be quite easy, where if you go to AWS and say, hey, I need a machine, within a couple of seconds it'll be giving you a machine, or you can automatically set up the configuration in such a way that whenever it is needed, it'll be creating new machines by itself. And agility, it is not like it is going to take a lot of time for it, and everything will be happened immediately, so that if there is a problem and for that you need more machines, we are going to do a auto configuration using which AWS can help us to set up the machines. And it's kind of flexible for us, where if you're trying to get a machine, sometimes there are also concept where you have to either procure the machine completely, or you can also lease certain resources, wherein you are going to put some agreement and pay them for that much of duration. But here it is nothing, and it's everything is open. So if you want to use a machine, you're just going to pay based on how long you're going to use, and if you don't want, you can stop using the service and you'll not be charged for it. So that's how it's quite flexible for an organization. And it's quite secured, wherein just like how we are going to have all the machines in our premises, we are going to create a specific network for an organization which is needed, so that we do not allow anyone else outside the network to access. So that way, AWS is quite secured, wherein we will not be leaking the data from our machines in the AWS cloud. And compared to what we can have the machines in our data center, it's quite reliable and high performance, because if, let's say, there is a problem, now again, the problem is not inevitable and something goes wrong, it will be the responsibility of the AWS to take care. So that is how they will have lots and lots of backups, and things are going to work in a better way, where if something is not working, they will help us to get it fixed by an alternate machine, and from that we will be working. And going back to the performance, now in our scenario, when we are going to keep a data center, let's say in US, and you're trying to access from your Indian office, then it is going to take a lot of time to work. Whereas in the AWS, we can access a machine which is close enough to our region. So rather than setting up a on-premises data center on a particular longer location, you can try to create the machine over the internet, on which they have different regions which is available, which is close to our working place. So you can try to use anyone which is close by our region where we are working, so that the accessing and the process of task that we are going to do will be quite faster. So that's how we'll be getting a higher performance of the activities that we are going to do. Okay. So to understand how exactly the AWS will be set up, now in AWS, if you want to create a machine, so rather than you having a machine on your premises, if you want to create a machine over the internet, which will be accessed through the AWS service provider, now AWS has something specifically called as AMI, whereas these are images using which we will be creating a particular machine. So if you want to create a machine, they have lot of templates or images based on which what kind of CPU you need, what kind of processors that you want, everything will be available in this AMI. So this is going to be like a template where based on what is that you need, you can specify and get access. And whatever the machines that you're going to create over the internet will be created based on these images or the templates. Okay, wherein this machine, whatever that we are going to create, which is called as instance, will be created based on this template, and these instances or the machines will be having exactly the configuration what you have put in the template. Okay, so like that, all these machines is going to be stored in a data center, just like how we have a data center in our premises. Now AWS will have a data center somewhere, and only in that you are going to create all these machines, right? So that way, that data centers on which we are going to create all this machine is what we call it as a availability zone in a AWS. So availability zone is nothing but it is a data center, just like how we are maintaining, they will also be maintaining it, in which you are going to create the machine over the internet. And now, in order to make sure that everything is highly available and fault tolerant is prevented, now we need to have a lot of backup, right? So that's how what AWS will be doing is they will not be just having one availability zone. They'll be having many availability zone, so that if something goes wrong in this availability zone or data center, you can actually put the data into some other availability zone which is close by this, and you can replicate the environment and ensure there is accessibility to the user always. So like this, now you are going to create something called as a region, where you put 2 to 3 data centers or availability zones and create a region. So whenever you are going to work on something in AWS by accessing a machine, you will be trying to access the machine using a specific region on which it is created. So like this, when you say a region is nothing but 2 to 3 data centers together in some location, which will be called as a region. So that if something goes wrong in that one availability zone, you can think about having another availability zone as a backup of it. So like this, AWS is all about different regions where you have to choose a particular region which is close by to you, and based on that, it will be creating a machine under a availability zone or a data center. Okay. So if you look at this diagram, this gives you a current overview of what and all are the AWS regions which is currently available, from which we can try to create an instance or a machine. Okay. And wherein these are the new regions on which they are planning to come up with the new data center or the region in which they will be having the availability zone. Pretty much now in India, they were thinking a long back about creating, but as of now, they have created a region in Mumbai. So now, if you are going to create a machine, pretty much for your production, you have to choose this region so that all the machines that we are going to create and access through the AWS will be available in this region itself. So corresponding to where you are working, whichever region is close by to you, you have to choose and create the machines in that. And whatever the numbers that you're seeing here is nothing but the number of availability zones or the backup for your data center which is available there. So depending on the use case, they have increased or you have set up the number. There is no hard coded rule saying that you should be keeping this, but depending on the usage, they are going to create more regions under, they are going to create more availability zones for the same region. Okay. Is that clear? All right. Okay. Now, when you say we are going to use AWS and you are going to pay only for the time that you're going to use, then it will not be feasible for anyone to pretty much understand it and learn and practice. So that's when AWS is going to give us something called as AWS free tier, where we will be having a limited free usage to some of the AWS services, which we can use for learning or for experimenting or to get a hands-on to understand how the AWS services will be there. We are going to use it. Okay. So that is how for our practice also, or whenever you want to learn something, you can make use of this free tier account. Okay. And when you're trying to create the free trial account, almost all the services what AWS is giving to you will be available in the free tier, but there will be only certain limited access. It's not like you're going to access everything, then it is of no point. Okay. So almost all the services will be available, but it will be of a limited usage that we can do on it. Okay. Then the free account or the free tier that you're going to create will be valid for 12 months from the date that you're going to create your account. Okay, so after that, it is going to expire, or you will be charged for the services, whatever that you're going to use it. So make sure only when you are creating a new account, it will be having the free tier services. If not, it will not be having. Okay. So let's try to quickly see how is that you're going to create a free tier account. And before that, some of the services that are free for us is these are the names of the services that you will be trying to use. And if you want to know what and all are the free services that you can access, then you can go through the aws.amazon.com/free. It will be giving you the list of all the services that you can access. Okay. Now, for today, let's try to quickly see how is that we can create a specific account so that for whatever activity further to understand how it is there, or if you want to explore it more and more, you can do that. So first, you need to create an account. So in order to access the AWS or Amazon Web Services, you have to go to the aws.amazon.com, because if you access amazon.com, it is going to take you to the online shopping place. But pretty much if you're interested to access the web services, then you're going to use the aws.amazon.com. Okay. Now, in that, uh, so this is the page that you'll be getting it. And now, if you click on the sign on console, there you will be getting an option where either are you an existing account holder or you are a new user. So in case if you're a new user, click on I am a new user and go ahead with the account, and then it will be asking you certain login credentials. Okay, so what you have to do is give in your specific name and the email ID using which you want to register and what is the password that you want to set and create an account. So once you click on the create account, what will happen is it will further take you to a page in which it will be asking you whether the account whatever that you're creating is for a company purpose or is it for a personal purpose. So in our case, whatever that we are using, it's for our personal practice. So after this login credentials that you give a specific email and a username to access, then you will be choosing the personal account in it. Okay. And once this is given, the next thing what it will take you to is a contact information page. Okay. In the contact information page, it will try to ask you what is your contact information in terms of your, email address, your home address, and what is your mobile number. All those details will be asking here. And once that is done, there you will be seeing one more option called as payment information, because when you're creating a free account, you're not going to be charged, but pretty much after the completion of 12 months, or in case if you're using the free service and in that if you have exceeded the limited usage what they have given, then we will be charged. So that way, for creating an account, you need to give a valid credit card or a debit card information. Without it, you cannot actually create an account. But again, for the first 12 months, you will not be charged anything. So you can go ahead and give it, but make sure you have to give a valid credit card or a debit card number, and only because of that it will be taking it and creating account, but you will not be charged for the first 12 months. Okay, so once you give the specific details, then at the last step for the verification, it is going to ask you to identify your verification by sending a pin to you based on what contact information that you have given. So basically, if you have given certain details on the phone number, then you will be getting a call or SMS based on what verification that you want. So once you give that verification, and the last step that you're going to do is what kind of plan that you're trying to use to work on AWS. Here, you're just telling what is the type of account, but here you are telling what is the plan that you're going to use. Whether it is a free account or you are trying to use it for 1 month or 2 months, based on that, you will be charged. But in our case, since we are going to use a free tier, then you have to choose the basic support plan where there is no fees, or you have to choose the free tier account. So this plan will ensure us that we will be having the limited usage for all the services and we will not be charged anything for it. Okay, so that is how. Please make sure when you are choosing a support plan, you will be using this basic, that is the no fees or the free tier account. So that is when you will not be charged. And further, once you have choose this and when you close it, the account will be created. So that is how you can go ahead by signing in into the AWS account. Okay, so the next time after you have created, if you come back to the same console here, you will be giving the specific email ID that you have used or the mobile number that you have chosen, and what is the password that you are giving. And then if you click on it, you will be coming to the AWS console. And this is the place from where we will be trying to access the AWS services. Okay. And if you want to access the service, any kind of services that you want, Either you can come here and type the name of the service or choose this. If not, just click on the service button here and it'll list you all the different kind of services that we have. Suppose if you want to do a computing service like creating a machine, you will be doing it here. If you want something related to the storage, you'll be using here. If something related to the database that you want to create, you can use here. In case if you want to do certain network connection or the configuration, that you'll be doing it here. Suppose if you want to create multiple accounts and give certain access permission on how things should be working, you'll be using this. So there are different kind of services that you will be making use by choosing this. Okay. And if you want to know the details about your account, that's when you can come here and go through this, wherein it will be giving you the specific account details. But there's one important thing that it will be very helpful for you is if you click on the support, you have a documentation where if you click on the documentation, you'll get a wonderful list of documentation for each and every task that you want to know in AWS. Okay. Suppose if you want to learn about certain data, all you have to do is go to this particular section in the documentation, and if you pass on by going through this one by one, it is going to give you the complete details about each and everything whatever that is needed. So you will be having a detailed explanation and understanding of all of them. So that's how you can go through and try to practice all of that one by yourself. That is one way of doing it. So any help that you want quickly, you can go here and search on the documentation itself, because even if you do Google, this is going to redirect you to some of the pages in this itself. Okay. So for today, let's stop it here. So make sure go back and create an account in which, remember, try to select the personal account, and then you should give a valid credit or a debit card. And in this, when you choose a support plan, you have to choose specifically on the free tier or the basic account. Okay, getting it?